They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are mourn, just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Oh no. Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Middle Path and all rogue warriors can feel honored because tonight we are blessed to spend time with a person who embodies literally every fundamental principle I have come to love, every lifelong fascination I've ever had, every spiritual axiom I've come to hold dear, and every health-related truth that I've found to transform our bodies, and has put that and way, way more in one place at one time. If someone wanted to know what made up the core of me as a soul and mind, and by extension everything I do, Thrive 2, and Thrive 1 for that matter, is it. Foster Gamble is the man behind Thrive 1 and Thrive 2, and we are so lucky, grateful, and truly honored to be here with you today, Foster. It's so good to have you back again, this time for the first time on Middle Path. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic. I'm so thrilled to be back with you. You're one of my favorite people to talk to. I never know where it's going to go, but I know it's going to be worth the trip.
I love hearing that so much. You're one of my favorite people. I actually tell people, I'm like, Foster Gamble's going to be on the show this week, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. So I'm glad it's mutual.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor. So, well, Middle Path, of course, is usually exclusive to Rockfin only, but tonight it's going to be for everybody in the spirit of thriving. So everybody gets to stay wherever they are at watching this right now and watch it, and it will stay that way forever. And also, Middle Path, we like to start things off with some kind of a practice or a mantra or a prayer, something that can just get us sort of centered and remembering what we're truly here for and why we're truly here. And so I offered you, and you said you would love to share something of yours with us today. What is it that you would like to share?
Well, sure. I don't know exactly what it will be, but I'd love to give you a sense of what's kind of at the core of my path of integrating the spirit and mind and body. So I would invite people, unless you're driving your car, don't close your eyes. But otherwise, just to sit or stand, let your eyes close if you feel like it, and allow your weight to go all underside. That means just relax your entire body, starting with your scalp down through your face. Let your shoulders go, your belly, your legs, your knees, until you're feeling the contact with the floor or the ground beneath you. Now you have grounded your antenna. Now we need to tune that antenna. So imagine a point of light right at the center of your being, somewhere around a couple inches below your navel, right in the center, not just of your physical body, but of your energy torus. And imagine that light is the result of all of the energy of the universe pouring into that center, simultaneously with all of the energy from the black hole of that center pouring out through that point of light into the universe. So you are that point of balance. And imagine that you are a toroidal energy field. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a donut-shaped, bagel-shaped vortex, which is actually the electromagnetic field around our body. For anyone who wants to see, I have a little model of one here in metal. Here's another one with colors, and it rotates at the speed of light and involutes out of one end into one end and evolutes out the other. That's what's going on in the energy of your body. So allow your breath now to ride that wave, to ride the involution with a big breath in, and then evoluting out the other side of that torus. That's the standing wave, like in a stream or a river. That's the standing wave that every atom, every molecule, every cell in your body is, and that you as a unique energy body are. So allow yourself to experience the center of that torus, and then experience the entire universe balanced in your particular torus. It's spirit manifesting into and through your body. And then let it hum. Find the right tone that center is resonating with. Let it be as low as you can, and then start raising it up. Oh, oh, that's the Kotodama chant, thousands of years old, coming from the Japanese tradition through the Hebrew tradition. That's the Suawei that was passed on from the Japanese as Yahweh, as the vibration to tune into spirit itself. And when you have now found your antenna, you have grounded that antenna, now let that energy pour out through your intention to listen, your intention to think clearly, your intention to connect with other beings throughout the cosmos, and finally, your intention to be the experience of alignment with the unified field itself, to be the experience of love, because that is your true nature.
That was delicious. I
That's
needed
a great
that.
way to start.
Yeah, what a powerful way to start. Well, it's like some of the practices I do are similar to that, but that was so fast. I don't know if it's because you're so good at it and I was just tapping into that, or if it's all of us together doing it or what, but it was really powerful for me.
Well, over the years, I've practiced to get it more and more efficient. And, obviously it needs to be authentic. If you're faking it, so what? But when it's authentic, I've practiced in getting it into ideally one breath. So that even as you're going through your day, when you feel yourself getting low energy, when you feel yourself getting off balance, where you can literally just find that point of light, take a big breath, and restore that balance and harmony in a single breath.
Well, I needed that. You just gave me what I needed, because things are, I don't know if you feel like this, but things are like ramping up, right? I'm not talking about like although that's all ramping up too, but I'm just talking about like with our personal, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional being, and like the ride we're on. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because you and I were talking before the call that you had a particularly kind of exhausting day, and so did I. But I was fortunate I'm just coming off of an 1.5-hour massage. And once a month, both Kimberly and I have this transcendent goddess of a masseuse who comes to the house and just tunes our bodies, tunes us back in. So I usually don't do an interview right after that massage,
Yeah.
but I told her I need 25 minutes to come back down to this plane. And that's what we did. And so right now I'm feeling really relaxed and energized. And at the same time, I know what you're talking about, that it's ramping up for individuals and for the species all over the planet right now.
Just really quickly, and like I think a lot of people in the audience will relate too. Your personal sort of window into like your own soul is, I think, opening your aperture to the energy of the universe and the whatever you want to call downloads, connection, interaction,
Yes.
messages. Like the veil is thinning, and I think there's some people who are still really worried about what that might mean, and they think it's going to get like clamped down by these other forces and ripped apart, and I don't know that we could fail, and I just feel like we can't fail. There is no failure. I don't know.
Well, people have been asking me that, for months, really, especially through this COVID thing, for a couple of years, is like, oh, is there any way out of this, and so forth. And I don't consider myself optimistic, because that's like a chosen attitude. I feel like I'm realistically confident because of what I know about the nature of truth and the unified field itself. So I have been confident when, for a lot of people, it didn't look like there was any good reason. But as you well know, I am so deep down the rabbit hole that I can see the light at the other end of the tunnel. And it's not a train coming at us, though there has been trains coming at us. It is literally the light of spirit getting liberated. And so now what I'm feeling, particularly in the last month or so, is now other people can see it too, especially with this whole trucker situation all over the world. It's like finally we have an icon that is global. You know, it started in Australia, now it's in Canada. The US one is starting in a week or two to cross the country. It's in a dozen other countries already, and the imagery is so perfect because it's like, okay, culprits, you have awakened the sleeping dragon. And now you've got these smoke breathing trucks with their horns honking, and they, you know, there's like they're saying, okay, we don't want to be violent. We haven't been violent so far while you've been pushing us in really cruel and inappropriate ways, and you can't push us any further. So it's, I mean, people are getting it all over and now the Justin Trudeau and this woman, Chrystia Freeland, his deputy secretary, they've now red pilling all of Canada within the last couple of days because they're not only trying to keep them from giving gas and food and so forth to these truckers, but now they're freezing their bank accounts and saying, we own your money if you support freedom. So now they're waking up. The whole world is getting to watch this iconic situation. And for me, the word that comes to mind is it's poignant. And what I mean by that is, on the one hand, we have seen so much tragedy already, and it's not over. All of the sickness and the death and the coercion and these psychos, you know, shutting down millions of businesses and destroying people's families, and now going after the children. It's so tragic. And at the same time, and this is where I think I'm really glad that you do these meditation type of experience, because it sets a framework for an experience that's larger than just thinking about this or that. And the other side of that is, apparently this is what it took to wake up humanity worldwide in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, it's almost like that darkness can't help but jump too quick and be too big and and then everyone goes, "Oh my God, did you guys see that? Like, look at this!
Exactly,
it's crazy."
Yeah,
and everybody's waking up. But I feel too like there's, you know, that. Did you watch I Pet Goat way back when?
I don't remember that.
It's this really popular sort of conspiracy-y animation. And it's called I Pet Goat. And it's supposedly channeled, and who knows? And some people think it's from the dark, and some people think it's from the light. And I don't know, but it's worth a watch, right? It's very full of symbolism and very interesting, you know, cinematography and everything, and music and sounds. And so there's a part, though, where the darkness in the world, the evil forces, are sort of represented, at least in part, by this thing. It's like a TV screen with like the one eye above it or something, and it's got like a snake body, but it's just like broken and kind of shattered, and it doesn't really have anything but that TV screen that it's like trying to like keep in everybody's face. And I feel like that's what this is, right?
Yes.
All they have is saying like, oh, all these people are racist, and, you know, people who are too obsessed with the word freedom, well, they're really fringy right-wing weirdos. And you're like, the word freedom is fringy right-wing weird? Like, what?
Exactly.
That all they have is that screen to try to convince us. It's so transparent, it's so thin.
No, when you piss off the people who transport our food and our goods, and when you piss off the parents, and when you piss off people, by closing down their businesses in them, particularly in the middle class, and take all that money and give it to the super wealthy and these giant corporations and so forth. You know, do you not understand that you can't get away with that? Truth and love will prevail. It's the nature of the unified field. And these psychopaths, by definition, don't understand that. But they're having to see it. And now it's going to snowball like crazy. It's happening sooner than most people thought, and it's going to be quicker than most of us can imagine.
Yay! That's so exciting. I really too, I'm like, look at the videos of these people. They have bouncy castles. They're grilling hot dogs. They're like dancing. Like, these are your terrorists. Come on.
And it's so great to see the kind of gamesmanship play out where the bad guys are like, okay, if we take all their gasoline, then they're going to freeze. And so, these guys are getting arrested for walking around with these jerry cans to put fuel in their trucks. So the response, rather than having a fight, was everybody went out and bought jerry cans. So everybody on the streets is walking around. They're not going to be able to arrest everyone. A single pissed off bee can be scary. But if you piss off the entire swarm, you're done. Anyone will have to turn in and take cover. And that's what's happening now.
I love it, because people are realizing their real power. And this was the power all along. You never had to fight anything. You just have to act together in any kind of uniformity at all. And that's that gas can, fine, everybody just take it. They cannot get all of us. And, someone pointed out in the chat, they're arresting people tonight, and they've arrested some of the bigger names or leaders or something. I think up there, I haven't caught too much of it today, but even then, I'm like, well, there's hundreds of thousands of us. They're not going to arrest us all. So many cops and so many military people have already stepped out and said, I'm not doing this, which is also so hopeful. And I just don't think that's going to work either.
No, this is the turning point. I'm confident that this is actually the turning point right here. It doesn't mean there won't still be ugliness, because now you've got very afraid people who don't know who they are, and they're feeling cornered. So they're going to strike out in their various ways. But it's not going to work, because we outnumber them by millions to one.
Yeah, I agree. And we're knowing that, and there's other things where people are saying, oh, they're going to plant guns, or they're going to do this, they're going to have a false flag. Like, we know all their tricks, though. None of those are new. And we know how to not be a part of them and not buy into them. And it'll be for the screen. And some people might be, caught up in that. But the rest of us, we're already awake. There's no leaving this place.
They're going to try their repertoire. But their repertoire is all about deception and coercion. And so it never has the strength of the field behind it, because it's going up against the life force. So they will try weapons, hiding weapons and saying it's, right-wing, racist, whatever in Canada. They're already, preparing for false flags in Ukraine. They will collapse the stock market. They'll collapse the dollar. They'll try giant cyber attacks. They'll try all of those things. But what's happened is, through the internet, and through the suppression that's already been going on, so many people have been learning the dynamic, the whole problem, reaction, solution, and so forth, and waking up to the fact that the political parties are bullshit, and that the fight is not between left and right, or black and white, or old and young, or rich or poor. It's actually between people who want to take our freedoms and those who want to be free. And that's a battle we cannot lose.
Yeah. That's why freedom's always been my favorite word.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and I think there's people who think this is like airy-fairy, love and light, ungrounded sort of hopefulness for whatever reason, but we're seeing the actual results. We're seeing these people doing this. We're seeing people act together in a unified way. We're seeing it spread around the globe. There's nothing airy-fairy, ungrounded about that. It's happening. It's real. It's there.
Yeah, recently I had on my show, I had Max Egan and Ricardo Bosi from Australia to give an update on what's going on the ground there. And they were the same way. It's frightful what the police state is trying to do. But people, whether it was the truckers or the teachers or the doctors or the nurses, they're all doing this nonviolent solidarity and non-participation and so forth that literally was inspiring the whole world. And I asked them, I said, what do you advise the rest of the world as we're watching? How can we help you? And they said, the best thing that you can do to help us is do the same thing where you are. And that's what's happening now.
Yeah, and every single person can take part in some way, which is very exciting. Yeah. That's how it should be. Well, and now they're saying, not only are they going to shut down the banks or bank accounts of these people and take their money, but they're also going after their cryptocurrency wallets, which is really not effective if you know how to use your cryptocurrency well, which I don't know if I'm that good at it, but I think most people who use it might be. And so a lot of people will be safe, and maybe we'll start teaching each other and learning better how to. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on cryptocurrency and that sort of side of this equation.
Well, I'm a huge fan of cryptocurrency. I've been promoting it for years. I'm deeply involved in it. And, for quite a while, I thought it was just a great alternative to the central banks, and a way that people who didn't have a lot of money might make a lot of money in a hurry, because I've had many friends and acquaintances become very wealthy in a short amount of time and then go do fantastic things with that money. But as I really dove in about a year ago to really study it, I realized, no, we're building the rails. When they built the railroad in the US, they had to do a lot of mining, and then they had to do a lot of smelting, and then they had to, cut down the trees for the railroad ties and so forth. And then it was a ton of work to actually build the railroad that covered the country. And all of a sudden, you could transport all these goods, and it kind of ushered in the industrial era. That's what's happening now with cryptocurrency, where these different, there's a lot of, frivolous coins out there. There's over 8,500 coins now, but there's some really good ones. And, if you don't already know, find someone who's an expert in this and find out who the good ones are and put your money in those ones, because they're the ones that are building the rails of an honest free market in currencies for the future of humanity. So when I say the rails, I mean, some of it is for privacy. Some of it is for rapid transactions. Some of it's for education. All the different things that are needed are being built, and those are the coins that are getting the most support. So I was listening to a great podcast yesterday. Tom Woods was interviewing someone named Dan Held, and Dan's been involved in this for over a decade, and he was describing the various ways that, because the big question that Tom was asking him was, will the government be able to destroy the blockchain and take over cryptocurrencies? And he said, of course they'll try. They're trying already, but they won't be able to. And then he lists, like half a dozen really solid reasons why they won't. But one of those reasons that's particularly pertinent to this conversation is when people start rushing to cryptocurrency as an alternative to state coercion, then almost anyone with two working brain cells is going to go, oh, there must be something about cryptocurrency that's very powerful. So more and more people start rushing. So every time they try to whack-a-mole and, stop one of these things, whether it's organic farming or school choice or alternative currencies, every time they try to whack it down, people just go, oh, okay, well, that's the direction we should be going. And I see that happening big time in crypto now.
That's so exciting. I have a few cryptocurrencies, and I never wanted to do it because I had this vast mistrust in AI and right. Electronics, and I have a shady past together. And so I was like, I don't want to deal with this. It seems like we're building the machine that wants to kill us. And, but I've had this turnaround pretty recently in my, beliefs of what could be true. And I wonder what you think about AI in general, and also whether there could be benevolent AI.
Oh, wow. I always love your questions. You go right for you go jump right in the deep end.
Jump out there. Yeah.
When I when Kimberly and I decided to make Thrive 2, I got off all of the corporate boards, advisory boards, foundation boards, all of that stuff, because I just needed to focus 100%. But I have recently been asked and agreed to join 2 boards, advisory boards. One of them was for a new energy incubator, and the other was for a new entity called the Ethical AI Institute. And the reason I wanted to put some of my energy into that is that even people who are very savvy about the global domination agenda, for the most part, don't understand yet that the end game is not just the destruction of the US. It's not just the creation of a one world totalitarian state. It's literally the destruction of humanity, consciousness, and spirit itself. And that sounds like an even more ridiculous James Bond movie than a global domination agenda.
Oh, I'm
but
with
the
you all the way.
The evidence is huge. And Kimberly and I did three big shows on this with people like Kimberly did some amazing research and presentations. And then Greg Braden came on, and John Hunt and Christian Pusateri, all of whom have their areas of expertise in this. And really the point of it was looking at where AI and the global domination agenda and health freedom all are coming together. And I don't know of a more important conversation, because if we understand that their end game is to not only control everything, but to turn over human spirit and consciousness itself to digital computers, robots, AI from other planets, who knows what all levels are behind this. But they have actually come out and declared this agenda in many books, many articles, many videos that you can find on YouTube. And we consolidated a bunch of those in a couple of Freedom Portal episodes. But if we know that that's their end game, then we can look to see, okay, well, why would they be doing this? And the reason, as far as we can tell, is that a certain percentage of the human population is socio or psychopathic. And that's, it's a very, very unfortunate condition where people literally cannot feel the feelings of others. And so that's kind of a sociopath. A psychopath is where you can not only feel love or empathy or connection, intimacy, but you actually get off on hurting other people. And those are the people who have risen to the top
Anthony
of
Fauci,
the Federal Reserve, the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations. The list goes on and on, but you follow the money in any of these coercive agendas, it always goes back to these same creeps. And they've been very blatant. Read Klaus Schwab's book about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's very clear what they're trying to do. So if you understand that they're sick, they need help, but they need to be obsoleted. They need to be out of positions of authority over anyone else. Then we can go about strategies that can actually really help, because I'm a huge fan of artificial intelligence. It can really help with healing. It can really help with education. It can help with quality of life and convenience and so forth. And that's what they're trying to seduce us in with. But the key thing, as always, is their behavior in violation of the non-aggression principle. And anyone who's not familiar with the non-aggression principle, this is the only serious candidate for a universal morality that we have come across. It's the one thing that I've found traveling around the world for decades, that every single human being I've ever met doesn't want to be violated against their will. And I've met a few, unfortunately, who justify being able to violate others against their will, but they don't want to be themselves. Yeah. So if that's the fundamental for humanity's ethics, is nobody gets to initiate force or fraud against anyone except in true self-defense, if someone's already attacking them. If that's the basic, then that's the compass that we need as we go forward into the world of the metaverse and artificial intelligence and augmented reality, virtual reality, and so forth, because as long as it's truly voluntary and people are awake to that choice, then we've at least got a serious chance of creating a path for humanity where we get the benefits of increasingly advanced technology without allowing psychopaths to use it to take over our bodies, the fruits of our labor, and so forth, much less turn our very spirits over to the digital world itself.
Yeah. Now you just wrapped up my entire understanding of what's happening here in a short little time period very well.
Well, the key thing, if people don't understand this, and I've had some really in-depth conversations with some of the leaders of the AI movement, and it's very informative. They're super bright people, but very chilling as well. Because the main thing is, and some of them have actually acknowledged this to me, and to their credit, some of them have been open to seeing some alternative perspectives. The key thing is that those who would use it badly have no sense of their essential being, no sense of the metaphysical, and therefore they're scared to death of dying. They're scared that their essential being will be taken out of existence. And I had a conversation, Kimberly and I, for hours with one of these people one time. And he's one of the most brilliant people on the planet. He was literally the top academic in China, went on to become the treasurer of the World Bank and the economic advisor for the Abu Dhabi Investment Fund and so forth. Super smart, just had no idea what was really going on in the world, and even more importantly, who he was. And so I said to him, I said, you've got a terrific brain, so follow along with me here for a moment. So who do you think you are? And he said, well, I'm my body. And I said, okay, well, your body's very real. It's very tangible. But let's go into your body. And he's studied some science and so forth. So I said, what's your body made up of? He says, well, trillions of cells. I said, okay, what are those made up of? Trillions of atoms. And I said, okay, what are those made up of? He said, well, I don't know. I've never really studied that. And I said, well, even the most advanced physicists now are coming to agreement that these atoms are just whirlpools in an infinite sea of energy and consciousness. And his jaw just dropped. He said, I've never had that thought before. And I said, well, keep going now, because his name was Ted. I said, Ted, every cell in your body has been replaced, virtually everyone, within the last 7 years. And yet Ted has been there all along. So by definition, Ted is a metaphysical being that is organizing trillions of atoms, molecules, cells, and so forth effortlessly. And he was just like, oh my God. He said, you may be onto something really big here.
You're the first one in all of history.
Yeah. And I said, this is what the mystics have been talking about for thousands of years. In the temples of Tibet and Japan and so forth, they've been meditating and exploring these realms for millennia, and you simply haven't been exposed. But it's critical that you know this. And to his credit, he said, okay, educate me. And so I gave him a stack of books and videos about what's going on in the world, because he'd been in such a bubble that he had no idea what the World Bank was really up to. And then a stack of stuff on metaphysics, because I said, this is what channeling is about. This is what telepathy is about. This is dreams, your intuition, this whole world that he had been in denial because he'd simply been taught that consciousness was a random epiphenomenon of the movement of molecules in the gray matter of your brain. I said, well, you are a whole lot more than that, dude. You are an antenna to the entire unified field. So he went away. He was just starting a book tour. He wanted a blurb from me for his book. And I said, I can't give you the blurb because your book is chilling and dangerous. And that's what started this conversation. To his credit, he actually stopped the book tour and went on a path of discovery, and we'll see where it leads.
I love that so much. It's mind-blowing to me that there's anyone left in the world who hasn't come across these concepts somehow. But I guess that's absolutely true. And this is part of our hyper focus on just materialism and reductive. Like, this is all we are, is this
That's
meat
it.
suit.
Yeah.
And that has to be intentional. And this is part of why is it serves that agenda you're describing, where in the end, our soul and our spirit is cut off, tuned into some horrifying metaverse or whatever they're planning. It's disgusting.
Right.
But if you know better, that can't happen to you. You wouldn't let it ever. You wouldn't go anywhere near it.
Exactly. Unfortunately, while they're trying to do this kind of dive over the goal line into a one world government through the COVID scam, fortunately, it's taking long enough that the human population is awakening, because it's so cruel, it's so blatant, and it's so fake. The virus is a fraud, the tests are a fraud, the media is a fraud, the censorship is fraudulent, and finally people are going, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And so they're looking for a perspective from which it actually makes sense.
Yeah, that they're trying to kill you. They're trying to...
Exactly. Right. The initial red pilling is not going to be an improved story.
No.
If you think, well, there's a global pandemic, but the governments and the AMA and the CDC and the FDA, they're on it, and they're going to find a cure. And, that's a little bit of a scary story. When you find out the real story, it's a heck of a lot scarier. However, you need to go through that rabbit hole, as we were talking about before, in order to see the light at the end of the tunnel and actually come up with whole system solutions that are commensurate to the problem.
And don't you think, I feel like the people who see through this and who get through it, who are willing to look at it and see, because it is terrifying to see this global conspiracy and how powerful it is or seems, and how powerless you might feel in the face of it. That is terrifying. And so the people who do look at it and do get through that and come out the other side, don't you think those are the exact people who are connected to that idea that you are something more than your body? There's something beyond you and something greater?
Absolutely. When Thrive 1 came out, we somehow thought that it would be most popular with the conspiracy community. And ultimately, it was very popular with them. But the people who really opened up to it first was the New Agers and the consciousness movement. And we were a little surprised because it was, there was a lot of shocking material in there for them. But when we interviewed a bunch of them, we realized that a lot of them had done a tremendous amount of work on themselves. They had done a lot of therapy. They'd done a lot of meditation. They'd done plant medicine, on and on. They'd studied ancient traditions. So they actually had the capacity to expand their consciousness and then deal emotionally with very difficult truths as they arose. So one of the main things that we're trying to do now, and is happening naturally, we're just in a position to facilitate it, is to bring together the right and the left politically with the conspiracy movement, with the consciousness movement, because we're really uniting around our true nature and around the truth of what's really going on, rather than these artificial, identity divides.
Yes, I love that so much. This is what I am always talking about too, with people. They're like, oh, this group, whether it's police or the right wing or the left wing or any group, this group has got it wrong because da-da-da, and they're so bad or they're so whatever, they're so dumb. I'm like, any group you're talking about is full of your potential allies. And I'm not saying I'm always very good at this, but it's true that we have to remember that all of these people could at any point switch their stance a little bit, but also that in moments like this, as long as we're all on the side of freedom or the non-aggression principle or both, that's where we come
one.
together.
They're one and the same. Yeah.
Like, who cares about the rest of the stuff? It does not matter.
Right.
So I love that you're bringing that together and unifying. And I think I found Thrive probably through a conspiracy lens. That makes the most sense to me. But I loved it so much because it did bring it together with that spiritual side of things, which has always been, my other biggest sort of influence in my life. And we need that. That was one of the things I was so hungry for, and why I made Rogue Ways and Middle Path here is because I see the value, and I think we need a big resurgence and focus on our spirituality, and in a way that some people can't really vibe with the New Age. You know, there's actually a divide. I know we just said this, but in a different way, I want to point out the divide between the New Age and conspiracy theorists, because a lot of New Age people look at conspiracy theorists as, I guess, like delusional and disturbed and like unwell, right? And that energy is negative, and so it's not okay. And that's always been so interesting to me, because I'm being in the conspiracy theorist camp. I don't see that. I do see that, but I see that in every camp that exists, and I don't see it more so in this camp. And then the conspiracy theorists look at the New Age people, and they're like, oh, you're part of the deception. You're like leading us into the Pied Piper or whatever. So it's really interesting, these divides and how deep that one goes. How are you finding that coming together? Is it very easy? Very hard?
Really big time. I would say that it's happening so much in my 3D reality, you know, with my friends and family and so forth, that I can kind of project what's happening there out into the Thrive network of people that I don't know, but I see the statistics. And I would say there's probably hundreds of thousands of leftists, of liberals, of Democrats, and just these are the names for in the United States, who have woken up and realized that what the principles that they stood for, things like, you know, no wars of aggression and free speech and independence and the ability to live your life however you want, as long as you're not hurting other people. That's kind of classical liberal. Well, that's not what the Democrat Party is anymore. That's not what liberal has come to mean. So people have realized that the party was stolen out from under them. What they thought it was, what they identified, has been taken. And, you know, fortunately, I've studied the history of that takeover a lot. And it was a very intentional communist, mostly plot, a technocratic communist plot that they knew, that the culprits knew would take about 2 generations, and that they had to start with the universities and Hollywood and the media, and then they would go down to high school, they would go down into elementary schools, and then ultimately once they could brainwash 2 generations, they would have us. And boy, are we there. You know, I have friends and relatives who are coming out of American universities now, and it's terrifying. They're in despair themselves. They're hopeless, they're depressed, they can't think, they have virtually no critical thinking, they're caught up in their own judgments, but they don't have any sense of, you know, the whole postmodern thing. There's no truth, there's no morality. And so I've watched that takeover be very successful. And fortunately now, for the first time, I saw a figure the other day from Politico, believe it or not. If anybody doesn't know, very left-wing leading political magazine, Politico came out with a statistic that 53% of self-identified Democrats between the ages of, I think it was 25 and 48, their major source of news now is Tucker Carlson on Fox.
I love that so much.
So wait a minute now, what's that? Did they become right-wingers? No, they're getting in touch with seeking truth rather than just their tribalism at any cost. And Tucker's one of the few people out there in the mainstream who's actually looking for freedom principles. And he's looking for what's really going on and how can we get out of this. So I see those signs everywhere. And, you know, on the right as well, people are waking up on the right to getting over their own judgments and their prejudices and their own religious bias and so forth, and moving more toward an accepting spirituality and an accepting of lifestyle choices and so forth, that again is not left-wing or right-wing or Christian or Hindu or whatever. No, it's freedom. It's the non-aggression principle.
It's so cool. Some people have said, this is the purpose of darkness, actually, is to push us further into clarifying what our light is.
Yes.
And in that way, they're almost doing us this favor. And you see this in action right now in these ways, right? We're unifying, we're getting past these things, we're becoming more accepting of one another and uplifting ourselves on the way. And this is, what people have been talking about. Like, this is the wave that can't be stopped, actually. And they can kick and scream and throw their fits and use their disgusting weapons against people. Have you seen these directed energy weapons they're using now? Like these really strong EMF that they're shining on the protesters?
Oh my God. Have you seen the ones where literally smoke's coming out of their nose and ears?
I think
Oh
that's
yeah, I've
yeah.
seen them from 3 different places. That it's totally chilling stuff where there's some kind of protest thing going on, and all of a sudden people are trying to put out a fire on one of the people who's in the group, and literally their nose and eyes and ears are turning red and there's smoke pouring out, because I think what's happening is, that now they've got so many people injected with these little, microbots and chips and so forth, that now they can use 5G and just these microwave weapons and so forth, and actually trigger self-incendiary events in these people. So talk about the reverse icon of standing up for freedom. It's getting so disgusting what they do in the name of deception and coercion that's only going to wake up people even more.
Yeah, these poor people who are being attacked by that, but we're seeing it, and either you can't look at that. I hope you can't look at that from any side and say, yeah, that's what they deserve. Like this.
Right, exactly. And when you're speaking about directed energy weapons, my research indicates to me that a tremendous amount of the fires in California have been from directed energy weapons. There's some natural fires, there's a lot of arson, and I think a lot of these arsonists are being paid through the Agenda 21 and so forth. And then a lot of them are directed energy weapons. I've got hours of video showing these laser beams coming down out of the sky and starting these fires and stuff. And I actually ended up being able to talk recently with I was asked to come and speak to a freedom group in Northern California, and there was a guy there who was one of the top fire chiefs in the whole country. They literally fly him around to the big crisis fires because he's so knowledgeable and strategically skilled. And so I took him aside. I just, because I didn't know if he wanted to speak about it privately or not. I said, listen, this is what I'm seeing with these. I'm seeing directed energy weapons behind a lot of these fires. I said, you're going into all these fires. Do you agree with that? And he said, absolutely. It's totally disgusting. It's just a big part of the agenda.
Wow. That is so, it's not cool. It's cool to have his affirmation of what
the evidence, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and this, I mean, it's so obvious when you look like the lines on which these fires are burning. Like, how convenient. It's exactly where they wanted this land to open up and use for these various projects and push people into these other areas.
Same thing in Australia, same thing in Oregon, same thing in California.
And all of those arsonists, like you said, I think they're paid too. And they all, when you look at their pictures, and I hate to just judge people, but I feel like we can sense things from afar, obviously. I think that. They seem like they are not well. I know you would have to be somewhat unwell to start an arson fire in the woods, but to a different level. And it makes me wonder if they're also targeted in some way or, both. Some are paid,
I think a lot of them
are
part of the MK Ultra program.
Yeah,
and anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's the CIA program that was started back really started in the 40s. It went with the CIA in the more publicly in the 60s, but after World War II, they brought over a bunch of Nazi creeps from the concentration camps who'd been doing studies with the inmates on mind control, and so they brought them over and they have basically used children all over this country and all over the world, basically, to train up hundreds of thousands of kind of Manchurian candidates, if you remember those movies. And so they they train them from childhood. They split their personalities through trauma, and then they train up different personalities to be assassins, to be sex slaves, and to be couriers for information. And I've interviewed two of these on my own show at the Freedom Portal at thriveon.com, and it's just chilling to understand what the CIA is doing. And they're taking, and this isn't just to train up a few like kind of sick super soldiers. Ultimately, they're trying to use these techniques on all of humanity. That's why they want us to social distance. They want to get stuff in our body. They want to keep us in a constant state of fear, and then mask us, and then train us to go along with their agenda. But it's not working anymore. It's now turning around, and they're getting exposed.
Yes, agreed. Yes, and the metaverse, if anyone wondered, is just a further step of that. If you're cloaked and fully embedded in this thing, like, what can be done to you? I don't want to know. Like, now you're stepping into it on purpose and agreeing to it. I'm not going there. You know?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see because, technology can be great. My dear wife, Kimberly, had an accident in a parking garage recently, and she got hit by one of those arms, those security arms that comes down after a car goes through, and it knocked her to the ground and shattered her hip.
Oh my God.
So she actually had to have emergency surgery and replace her hip and a significant part of her femur. So thank God they have the technologies to be able to do something like that. However, when you go into the metaverse, I mean, I'm a big fan of virtual reality. I love to go. I have a virtual reality set, an Oculus set, and I go in and I travel to Machu Picchu and in Egypt, and I'm skiing down these slopes in Switzerland and so forth. I visit in these sports events where it's as if I were there. It's fun. It can allow particularly people who can't travel to have an amazing experience of the world. However, once again, that's the seduction. That's Bill Cosby's, here, have a glass of wine and, slip a little something into it. And then they're going to take advantage of you. And so I'm hoping, and part of the reason why I'm involved in this Ethical AI Institute is to see if we can literally just shine the spotlights on how we can use this technology well, and shine the spotlights on this psychopathic seduction so that we can literally separate the two, and then have really healthy access to there are certain things that will be fantastic in the metaverse. I'm going to be interviewing in a couple of weeks Adam Apollo, who is he's amazing Jedi of your generation, and he's a physicist, he's a geometer, he's a DJ, he's a software developer, and his passion is advancing education, all aligned with the principles of the unified field. And he's working on three-dimensional experiences where people can through a virtual or augmented reality, can create your own educational path, interacting with your hand or your voice or whatever, and literally choose, get clarity on your purpose, and then choose how you want to go about learning what you need to know. And when you choose a topic, then in a three-dimensional hexagonal tiling, related topics will appear, and you can just select one of those, and it becomes part of your curriculum. And you'll get world-class mentors that you can study these things. And when you get a certain level of mastery, then you'll get certain badges. And that becomes the replacement for your college diploma. This becomes what you have actually mastered in life that would empower you to do a good job at this or that in an organic, whole systems, thriving humanity. And so a lot of that will be in, not Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse, but it will be available in virtual reality, but on an ethical basis and with all the appropriate warnings and guidance to make sure that you balance out this experience with your, hiking and backpacking and swimming and exercise and yoga and meditation, all that stuff.
Wow. This is literally my dream years ago as a teacher. That was what
Really?
I was dreaming of. I was like, I wish we just had, this self like directed. Because I learned that way. I actually went to Evergreen State College, and whatever you think about that place, I was able to construct my entire education. Say, I'm gonna make up this class. I'm gonna put this book and this experience and this type of activity and this and this and this person and whatever, and that's gonna be this many credits. And then I'm gonna do this, and they let me do that for my entire, all of it.
Yeah.
And so there were some classes I just took too, but that was one of the best experiences of my life. And I thought, what if every child was doing this since they were really little with guidance, but to some extent you're choosing. And the way I was picturing it was like you'd have bar graphs, like, oh, you have like 10 things of math, and like, and whoever it was, there was no requirement. You just had whatever you created over the years, and
That's right.
just is your map. And yours is way better. This is way better than what I was thinking.
Yeah, and most of the successful entrepreneurs that I know would be very hesitant to hire traditional college graduates right now, especially from the Ivy League, because of what has happened to all of those colleges. They're much more interested in, what are you interested in? What have you done that shows commitment? What skills have you built? And how do you work on a team? What are you up to?
And especially most people, I would think, who come from traditional education can't answer that question at all. They don't even know what you just said.
Exactly. That's
so
why,
sad.
yeah, on my show, the Freedom Portal, next month, we're devoting the whole thing to education. And the first show, I'm bringing on Richard Grove, who's he and I were both mentored by John Gatto, who was kind of the one of the first big breakthrough guys in real education. Wrote the Dumbing Down of America and the Underground History.
And the 7-lesson school teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he and I are going to lay out the kind of the history of the takeover of education. And then I'm having 3 women on, one of whom has started an alternative academy that's just awesome. Another one who is a very successful homeschooling mom of 3 children, and a third one who has really become a major spokeswoman for unschooling. Yeah, even goes beyond the homeschooling. So that's kind of showing things that are real on the ground in terms of alternatives in education. And then Adam is going to come on. We're going to lay out this whole vision for what it could be in the future.
Wow. I need to watch your show more often. Tell people about the Freedom Portal in your show.
Well, 3 Saturdays a month, we have a subscription show. Once a quarter, we'll have a really big public show with somebody like Greg Braden, Bobby Kennedy was just on, Catherine Austin Fitz is coming on soon. We'll open that up to the public, just like you do with your shows. You have some public, some private, but it's, for a nominal fee, you can join this show. And basically, there are thousands of members, and we come together and deepen the conversation on the most important issues that we know to cover. And we not only are exploring them together, but we also, I bring on what I call worldview pioneers, cutting edge thinkers in each of these major areas. And we're leaving behind us a curriculum that will be part of the education for the future. Because, there's plenty of people out there interviewing famous people. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in what's the thinking, how does it cohere and actually build both the critical thinking skills and the knowledge base, for a thriving future. So I may be done with that, within the next year, because by then we will have covered all of the major sectors and all the issues in that sector. But so a lot of what we're doing is creating the community, because there's a lot of people out there who, have difficulty talking with their friends and family about what they know. If you're really informed, everybody's having challenging conversations these days. So a lot of people are thrilled to find a community that's not only having the conversations, but you can go anywhere in the conversation with anyone, as long as you're doing it respectfully and authentically. So once a month, one of the Saturdays is what we call the network dialogue, where everybody's got their camera and their microphone. We just throw it open for a big Q&A where they ask me things and I ask them my questions as well. We all learn from each other. So our strategy with Thrive was to put out the movies. The first one basically was a diagnosis of what's in the way of our thriving, and it showed some possibilities. The second one was, okay, virtually every solution to every major problem we're facing is already in existence on the planet. We just got to solve this authority thing so we can unleash that stuff. And then once that was out, then we wanted to have this conversation and global community available. That's the Freedom Portal. And now, as that's happening successfully, our next, and probably in a sense our final focus, is what we call the Solutions Hub. And we've been in beta for about 6 months now. And basically that's creating an online social network in a sense, but all based around solutions. So you can either observe for free, or you can join with a standard membership, or if you're like a frontline organization that really needs super high security and privacy and all that kind of stuff, then you have what we call a private edition. And so it's an open source platform. It's decentralized. We got all our own redundant servers in multiple countries. So you're not censored. You're not surveilled. So you can be as public or as private as you want. And you will have private chat, private messaging, private secure video conferencing like we're doing now, but it's totally secure. So we think that that's the major thing that's missing right now, in addition to a universal morality, is the platform that allows ethical solutionaries worldwide to find each other quickly, to share best resources, to collaborate effectively, get the training to know how to collaborate, and then to be able to broadcast their messages and events and resources and so forth to like-minded people who want to know and take action all over the world virtually instantaneously. So we think that probably within the next 2 months, we'll be opening that to the public. We're waiting till it's really ready. We've got over 150 groups and over 600 individuals that we're testing it out, and they're loving it. We're refining the security aspects and making the user interface as convenient as possible, because we built a Ferrari, and it takes a little while to learn your dashboard. But once you've got your dashboard, then you're connected with ethical solutionaries worldwide and instantaneously. So we've got some heavy duty frontline groups. I won't even name them, I don't want to make them targets yet, but you'd recognize their names, in health freedom and currency and security, education and so forth worldwide. And pretty soon that whole thing will open as soon as we're confident that we've got the capacity to serve people well.
It's so beautiful when you're describing this, because people really need to honestly get off the doom and gloom porn and get into the solution oriented, right? And to feel connected in that. And this isn't, you've condensed all this information that's so good and it's so true. It's not ignoring any of the problems, but again, it's focusing on the solutions and what's good. And everybody needs that right now. It's so good to have.
That's what we're seeing, that literally billions of people are being red pilled right now. And it's not an easy process. So it helps to have community. And then it helps to have experts who can help you with your emotional well-being and help you with how to find your purpose, and then how to choose which sector, which issue you want to work on, and then how to find other people and how to organize whole system solutions, and how to make decisions harmoniously. And when things don't go well, how to resolve conflict, and then how to create critical mass actions, and how to share resources like lawsuits and petitions and flyers and funding strategies. It's not an infinite challenge. There are just certain things that we need to know that have been consciously withheld from us our entire lives. But now we've got all this stuff in decentralized archives where it can't be stopped anymore.
Yes, I love it. Well, and these things, like you said, that have been kept from us all our lives, they're infinite, and that's what I love about Thrive 2. Thrive also, Thrive 1 and 2 also,
Right.
is that it shines the light on a lot of these things that have been hit. I wanted apricot seed the other day, and I can't buy that in the United States. Like, it's a seed. It comes in my fruit. I don't know.
Right, but it might cure cancer, and they don't want that.
Can't have that. I was wondering if you've done anything in the Freedom Portal and with that work you're doing to on alchemy and spagyria and intrinsic data field work.
No, we really haven't. I think it was a great idea. I'm somewhat familiar with alchemy. What was the second word you said?
Spagyria is and I'm hoping I'm getting this right. I've had Phoenix Aurelius on so many times, and he does alchemy and makes spagyric tinctures. And I think spagyria is the physical alchemy of distilling like the essence of a thing and then putting it in a solution to be used, medically. I'm pretty sure I'm describing that correctly. And he actually would be a great person if you want to have that in your network of information.
That would be awesome. I know another guy. When I did a tour of Australia a few years ago, and I was hosted there by a guy who is an alchemist in the area of Ormus. Are you familiar with Ormus?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah,
like
Ormus is usually either powders or tinctures that get prepared, by the full moon and with certain processes and so forth. And it seems to be very effective, very real. And, alchemy is a very ancient art, and there's a lot of bullshitters out there.
Yes.
But there's also some real experts who know what they're doing and are helping people tremendously.
Yeah.
I will make note of that. That will be a great topic.
Phoenix Aurelius especially is like the most scientific, academic, brilliant mind that you would love him.
So Phoenix Aurelia?
Aurelius. Aurelius. Phoenix Aurelius.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and he's amazing. Name. And he works with IDF too, and he actually got me on this. It's a mini IDF machine, actually.
Wow. Beautiful.
Has its little
that's gorgeous.
This is tuned exactly to my frequency with the frequencies of healing for every single thing that I'm dealing with. So it's like all day, every day, healing me with intrinsic data field or like radionics type, and he also does that. So that's really fascinating too. And then I also wanted to ask you about Brown's gas, if you have any familiarity with that.
Years ago, almost 25 years ago, Nassim and I were working together in a secret lab outside of Santa Cruz.
I just love that one sentence. Nassim and I were working together in a secret lab. Yes.
And he developed a motor that was running on water. And it was based on the same principle as Brown's gas, which is electrifying water in such a way that it separates the hydrogen and the oxygen. And then he was just running it on that gas, and the only exhaust was the little drops of water would come out the exhaust pipe. He ended up abandoning that project because a number of huge automakers got into it, and they started putting billions into it. And it was going to happen if it was going to happen through them, because the technology was getting known. And I haven't seen anything actually come of it. I think especially because it's an expensive process. To get your hydrogen that way is just too expensive. Now in Thrive 2, we featured several free energy technologies, and one of them was a hydrogen technology that had been developed in Thailand, and we had some footage of that technology. The guy discovered it by accident. It was like a byproduct of something that he was doing, where he found a recipe of earth elements that when he stirred it in a toroidal vortex, and if he would get the temperature, the pressure, and the pH all accurate, it would start naturally off-gassing hydrogen for pennies, actually, basically. And then you end up running the machine off of that hydrogen, so it becomes a self-looping device. That that technology is one of the ones we're trying to help right now get out into the world. He's been offered huge amounts of money, but he hasn't found the funder that he trusts yet. He's turned down 2 major offers, and he's waiting for the right one. And we've got several people that were ready to meet him, but with the whole Omicron fiasco, they shut down Thailand again. So we couldn't get the investors and the vetters in. As soon as that lifts, which I think it will soon, then hopefully we'll be able to get that technology out soon, because it's all ready to go. There's working prototypes. It just needs to be scaled, and it needs to have the manufacturing ready, developments completed.
These are the things that give me so much hope, because there's so many things that just happen, and I don't think they understand how quickly it can happen and just be spread. I think Bitcoin was one of those things that they were like, oh, what's this? And then they're like, well, let's hope it doesn't happen. Okay, now it's happening. Well, let's try and smear it. They can't keep up with us, actually, right? We're always out.
Well, that's right. I mean, Kimberly says that coercion, by definition, always follows innovation. So because when you're free, then your consciousness is going to create in harmony with the unified field. And the people who are sick enough to try to stop people from doing that, by definition, they're always reacting to the innovation. So ultimately they'll never keep up.
Yes, that's the natural process. Well, in that vortex, like I love this, and I don't even understand it as well as I want to, but I understand that our heart is a vortex. It's the only reason why we are alive and can pump blood all throughout our body. Trees and their capillaries, or whatever they're called in a tree, to get the water all the way up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet. Like gravity would never let that happen, but there's some kind of structured water and vortex energy that gets it up there anyway. And the vortex is like the way everything happens for free.
Exactly. It is the fundamental energy pattern of the universe. One of my mentors, Arthur Young, who wrote The Reflexive Universe, we featured him in Thrive 2 also. He's passed away now, but he did quite a bit of research to try to figure out how in the world a redwood tree could get that much water up to the top, because it's a massive engineering task. And he found that, sure enough, within the capillaries of the tree is what he calls the bucket brigade. There's all these little toroidal vortices that pass the energy on from one to the next, and literally they don't have to lift the water that high. They just have to lift it to the next torus.
I love that.
It's a perfect metaphor for what we're doing. None of us need to solve this global domination agenda. We just need to each take the next right step, and it'll happen anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. People ask me a lot, well, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? They're so powerful. What are we supposed to do? And I say the same thing every time. You just work on yourself. You just heal yourself, and you just do the things that you can do to be more and more responsible. Like that's an easy way to say it, right?
Yeah, and I also recommend that people come to the Solutions Hub, because there's a landing page where you can get started. And if you join the Freedom Portal, you can actually become part of the beta group. But we guide people through a process there, because if the motivation's there, then most people unfortunately have never sat down and just taken a pencil and paper and go, okay, well, what's my purpose in life? And there's no more powerful thing I know that any individual can do. And nobody knows the right answer to that except you. And it may change over time, but you're the one who knows. Once you get clear on your purpose, which is not a goal, a goal is grounded in time and space. And, you maybe want to make $1 million by the time you're 35 or something. That's a goal, and that may align with your purpose or not. But a purpose is like north. It's a direction that is not in time or space. It's simply a direction. There's no end to it. So it guides you no matter what you're doing. And once you're clear on your purpose, and your purpose may be to facilitate healthy education for the children of the world, as simple as that. Another person might be to develop the best curative techniques in the health field that I can. Other people might be that want to figure out how best to have our energy technologies align with the dynamics of the unified field. Those are all examples of a purpose. And then things happen along the way. But once you're clear on your purpose, as I mentioned a little bit before, then you ask yourself, okay, well, what sector am I drawn toward? Which one am I passionate about? And ideally, which one am I good at? Or which one do I want to get good at? Then once you identify that, then you focus in further to, okay, what's the issue that I want to work on? Maybe your issue is health. Maybe it's curing cancer, or maybe it's getting rid of vaccine passports, or, how to boost your immune system, whatever it is. And then there's one more step in that most people have never thought of, and we call it levels of engagement. And when you ask yourself, okay, how do I want to engage in this issue? Do I want to be meeting immediate needs by, working in a soup kitchen, or taking my medical skills to third world countries or something like that, meeting with people on an immediate need day to day? Or am I more someone who wants to work with the systems themselves, the political system, communication system, economic systems? Or do I want to actually work on the worldview level, the consciousness shift itself? And it's a very dynamic level, and a lot of our audience is most interested in that, because the consciousness shift is aligning your worldview, your perception of reality, as accurately as possible with reality. We can all interpret it any way we want, but the reality's out there nevertheless. And so the more accurate your worldview is, the more you can design systems that are effective. And the more you design systems that are holistic, that are really effective, aligned with the dynamics of the unified field, the more immediate needs are going to be met, whether that's a need for food, health, accurate information, love, intimacy, whatever it is. And so that's the process that we recommend to people who are now motivated and want to get active, because once you know that about yourself, you are a powerful being on this planet. And then you can either start a group, find a group, learn how to collaborate with other people. And this is the grassroots growing movement worldwide that aligns with the field, obsoletes all of this deception and coercion, and will create a thriving world. And there's no way of stopping it.
Yes, I'm absolutely with you. And it's so amazing to me when you look at all of that, when you see, this is why I just wish everyone would go watch Thrive 1 and Thrive 2 if they haven't yet, because when you see it, you understand, and maybe you understood before you watched it, but you just see it so clearly, like, yeah, all the solutions were already here. In fact, they were all here before we ever even tried. And this is another thing that Phoenix said that I always stunned me. He said, by the time you take plant medicine, it's, it grew last season or something, it was processed, it did whatever, and then now you're taking it, but it just so happens to hold compounds and new aspects in itself that were perfect for the virus that came out, or whatever bacteria, doesn't matter, that you're dealing with right now. How did it know?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, nature had it already in store for us. It was already in the works. It was already happening, and then it came at the perfect time, and that happens in so many ways. And randomly, I was just thinking, and I've thought before, if there is benevolent AI, I wonder if blockchain was created by the benevolent AI in order to help us free ourselves. And what do you think about that?
Well, I do believe that it was created by benevolence in a benevolent way. I don't think they could have accessed. It's so clever on so many levels. There are just too many safeguards built in for it to be stopped now. And so that took an awareness of alignment with the principles of the field, that whether it was extraterrestrial, whether it was just a very conscious person, group of people, or whatever, I think that it was benevolent. I think that and even if it was somehow created by the CIA or something like that, they had to recognize enough of those qualities to create it as a seduction, kind of a honeypot to try to grab our consciousness and behavior and so forth. That's possible. I mean, so maybe their benevolence got out of control.
Yeah, it'd be almost like the internet.
And has gone viral.
Yeah.
But I think more likely that it was created and offered anonymously by some people who had very deep cosmic insights as to what's really needed right now.
Which we see through a lot of inventors and great thinkers over time, that it comes from beyond to them, just like that young man in Africa in Thrive 2.
Yeah, in fact, I was in communication with him this morning.
Oh, wow.
And he has a new invention, which is that he's got, and I think there's somebody sent me a video. I think it's on YouTube already. But he's got a little, what he calls an MSAD, a little device that runs without being plugged in, and gathers the radio frequencies from the air. And he's got a little miniature version of the big one that he had for the generators. He's got one now that's running a TV ongoingly. So I saw the video and I contacted him this morning, and I've asked him a bunch of questions. I want to know how long it's been proven for, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm waiting for an answer back from him. But again, once you know the principles like he does, then you can apply it in all sorts of places.
How wonderful. I'm so excited. Is there going to be a Thrive 3? We won't need it.
No, I don't think so. We didn't even think there was going to be a Thrive 2, because Thrive 1, remember, it was 16-hour days for 8 years. And we put, all of our energy and all of our money into it. And we were thrilled and surprised at how successful it was and continues to be. There's still close to 500,000 people watching it a month, 10 years later.
I love that.
So obviously people are hungry for that kind of truth. But, and Kimberly and I were planning on never doing that again until we saw all these solutions that are already in existence. And we just sat down over dinner one time and said, there's so many people hopeless right now, and we're so excited that we can't withhold this information. We need to put it into a succinct package and get it out to the world. And so we did. Fortunately, it took us about 2.5 years instead of 8 years, because we learned a little something. And we had lots of help, from investors and so forth in making it. And it's being more challenging spreading it around the world, because back in 2011, when Thrive 1 came out, there was no censorship on the internet. And now they've realized that the internet is liberating humanity. So they're trying to censor like crazy now, including us. We've been banned from even our trailers are banned. Any ads for it are banned.
Yeah,
we did a thing on Twitter where we were making it go free, and we did a 10-day countdown. And on day 3, they just banned our account. They never responded to any emails, phone calls. They won't even tell us why. It's just gone. So, it's obvious that they're trying to suppress it. But these alternative social media platforms are growing. Our email list is growing. So more and more people are finding out about it. And those who do watch it are really inspired and informed to the next level.
Well, if there is a Thrive 3, it'll just be a little quick trailer that says, "Look, we won. Woo!"
Well, our version of Thrive 3 is the Solutions Hub. Yeah. And everybody who wants to can be the star.
Yeah.
Create your own soundtrack, find your other actors, and make it happen.
I love that. That's so
And
true.
all that's available at thriveon.com. You can find the movies. You can find a ton of our media there. You can find the Freedom Portal. And you can also get an introduction to the Solutions Hub. There's currently a free trial for the Solutions Hub where you can just, for the Freedom Portal, where you can just check it out. And this is kind of a temporary loophole where if you're a member of the Freedom Portal, you can join the beta testing for the Solutions Hub. So if you're really motivated, you can actually join both of those for free right now.
And the link is right below you, no matter where you're watching or listening to this. So you can just hop right over there from here.
Right.
And I love it. So that's the best place for people to go to connect with all of it. Thrive 1, Thrive 2, the Solutions Hub, the Freedom Portal. Click right below you wherever you're watching or listening. Is there anything else you want to tell people about that's coming up or that you want to invite them to?
Well, if you sign up for the Freedom Portal, you'll see the people I was talking about before in education and economics and environment. These topics we're going to be covering. You'll see a roster of luminaries that you can access, a month for free or very inexpensively, and just be on the lookout for the Solutions Hub. You can get started on what we call the path of purpose that I just described. by just going to our landing page at thriveon.com and to the solution sub. So you'll be ready when you get your own dashboard. You'll already, in a sense, have identified yourself as a player in the world. I think the last thing I would say is sometimes, people come up to me and say, well, what can one person do against this monolithic force with all these billions of dollars and big institutions? And, I'm just a single player by myself and feeling kind of hopeless. And I remind them that once upon a time, there was a swimming race. I tell people, imagine you're going to be in a race. You go down to the beach, you got your bathing suit on, you put your goggles on, and you have to swim out to this buoy that's quite a distance out into the ocean. And you look either way on the beach, and there's like 60 million participants. And then the gun goes off and everybody jumps in the water and swims toward that buoy. And imagine if your spirit were so strong, your intention were so strong to be a human being, that you won over 60 million other people, because that's exactly what you did when you were a sperm. So no one is here other than with huge intention and talent. When you discover who you are, then the unified field will pour all of what you need through you, and you don't have to do it alone.
It just gets easier and easier and better as you go.
Absolutely. We were born to thrive. I'll leave it at that.
Love it. It's well said. It's a perfect place to end things, and it's absolutely true. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to the ever-thriving Foster Gamble. Foster, thank you so much for being here and for being you and for all you do.
It's been an honor. I would love to talk to you anytime.
Oh,
onward.
Yay. Well, life is a mystery upon a mystery, and there are always more folds to pull out, caves to wander through, and patterns to observe. The absolute endlessness of what we didn't know is a key to a riddle we thought we couldn't solve. If it ever seemed to you that we couldn't win or wouldn't win, remember that all those folds, all those caves, and all those patterns we still haven't looked at or understood, and remember that we couldn't possibly know all the future holds. There are surprises yet, and they're waiting to invite you to the brightest future of all. And until you see it and know it, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack, fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers, flip reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, Bane style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dusted towels, no rags, straight melt dash. Dust to ash, turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet, lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it, it's a secret. Now you're nobody, label somebody, trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.